What's up everybody, it's your boy David, back with another build video. This week, we're making trenches and sandbags. Let's hop right into it. The starting point for today's build is kitchen sponges. You could also use squishy packing foam of some sort, but I wanted to use something that's generally a bit easier to get a hold of. Pick out the size that you want your fortification to be. I decided to make a U-shaped emplacement that's open at the back. Cut the sponges or foam to size with some scissors and mount to some chipboard with hot glue smeared across the bottom. While that's cooling for a minute, we're going to start in on the flooring and siding. I took thin popsicle sticks and scored some extra wood texture into the top. You can either use a small nail, an embossing tool, dental picks, or anything of the sort here. Also, you could use chipboard or cardstock sections cut to length here too if you want more even spacing. Now that the hot glue has had a minute to cool, swap back to your base and trim it fairly close to the sponges. Then use the scissors again to start shaping the trench mounds. Try for multiple shallow cuts to round out the shape here, rather than a few deep ones. Because of how the foam will squish under the blades, you could end up with some funny looking divots otherwise. Once that's done, we're going to want to apply a quick base coat to the foam. Squeeze some cheap black craft paint directly onto the sponges, slightly wet your brush, and work the paint in. This way, if any flocking gets knocked off later, we'll have a dark layer underneath that won't stand out so much. Leave that to dry in front of a fan if you want to save some time, and let's hop back over to the wood sections. Using a set of garden shears, trim the rounded ends of the sticks off, and then start cutting smaller sections with some variety in size. I'm going for a rougher, run-down looking fortification, and this randomness will help with that. If you want to represent something newer or neater, pick out sizes, measure, and cut accordingly. Follow that up by cutting the sticks lengthwise to get the right proportions. If the sticks break apart here because of the direction of the grain, don't worry about it too much. Just trim a few extra pieces to cover the difference. The final part of the woodwork is going to be some vertical supports, so trim the heads off of a few matches and set them to the side too. Before we mount the flooring and siding, we're going to apply our base layer of dirt. The painted foam should be dry by now. If not, take a snack break and come back when it is. One side at a time, we're going to apply hot glue on high heat and work it into the foam with the side of the glue gun nozzle. While it's still warm, dip it into your flocking of choice. Mine is my normal mix of recycled coffee grounds and black tea leaves. Repeat the step all over the foam. Take your time and try to avoid any extra hot glue strings. If there are some left though, don't worry about it too much. We'll be adding some more dirt in a later step. Once your dirt is in place, go ahead and glue sections of wood down for the flooring. Start at one end and work your way across 1 or 2 rows at a time. If there are some small gaps, that's alright. We're going to add in some flocking there later too. The walls are going to be done in similar fashion, but cut the pieces to size before gluing, since there's no place for extras to stick out. Plop a few matchsticks in vertically as supports, and this step is good. Another detail to bring some more life to the piece is going to be sandbags. There are a lot of tutorials on how to make sandbags at scale, generally with some form of clay or putty. I even did a video on it. But today we're doing a new, faster technique I figured out, using foam core. Cut some strips to the width you want your bags and peel the paper on the outside off. Dollar store foam core is going to be the easiest for this. After peeling, run a smooth surface, like a tool handle or a marker, on the long sides to round them out slightly. Then cut some sections for the bags with scissors or a hobby knife. Finally, pinch the ends you just cut with a set of pliers to crimp them down. I swapped pliers partway through to a spring-loaded set, which really helps save time and energy. After making a few dozen of these, glue them on the top edge of your trench. I recommend a few fairly even layers, followed by a few bags with slightly more random-looking placement. Take some plain Mod Podge after that, slightly wet your brush, and cover the bags and the boards liberally. This will not only help lock everything in place and strengthen them, it's also going to protect the foam from getting melted by super glue when we finish filling out the dirt in a few steps. Let that dry and then move on to painting. Take a medium brown, slightly thin to get into the cracks and recesses better, and paint all the wood and the sandbags with it. Try to avoid paint on the flocking, but don't sweat it if you get a bit. Our final step will hide the vast majority of our transgressions here. This is also a great time to trim your support posts if you're a derp like me and you forgot to do it earlier. Next, we're going to hit all the areas we just painted with a brown wash. I'm using an artist's alcohol ink here because the high pigmentation and good flow are going to help me get into any hard-to-reach areas I missed in the previous step. After giving that a few minutes, do a dry brush of a light gray on the wood sections. Weather often grays out wood over time, and this will help to differentiate our colors at the end. Then do the same general thing for the sandbags, but with a light skin tone or a peach. One final ink for all the parts we've been painting, slightly thinned with a wet brush. Either Army Painter Strong Tone or Agrax Earth Shade would work great here to deepen the shadows without changing the base color too much. Then, using the same color for your sandbags that you just used, do another lighter dry brush, this time focusing mostly on the inner and outermost edges. This is going to help add some extra visual delineation between the different textures that we've got going on. Our final step is going to be finishing off the flocking. Pick off any remaining strings of hot glue that are still here, and start in with your glue. This is a great time to fill in any gaps you don't want around the sandbags, as well as cover any gaps between the board sections. Any little bits of hot glue still peeking out can get hidden here too. Finally, dust on a little bit of your preferred dry pigment, knock any excess off with a soft brush, and use a spray sealer to lock everything in place. And that's another one down, folks. This is obviously a pretty versatile bag of tricks. It wouldn't be hard to adapt this down in scale for 15mm games. Trenches are also pretty universal, so some minor changes for setting could make for some fun fantasy or grimdark terrain. But what do you want to build? Modular trench sections? Sci-fi foxholes? Maybe whole board sections for some massive historical battles? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, sane, and crafty out there, and I'll see you in the next build.